And now it's time for another episode of your favorite public speaking broadcast. That's right. Welcome to Public Speaking at Front Range Community College. Hi, my name is Brad, and this is my informative speech about my favorite animal in the world, my dog Moosin. Moosers, oh, I'm so cute boy. Yeah, I really hope you enjoy this video because it's going to be the best one. And I need that A, because I'm really working hard for that grade. And this is my speech. Here we go. That was not how you are to present. When you are presenting online, present like you would in class. First, let's remember we need to see some of you. I don't want just an up-close talking head, very close, moving in, moving. No, I see no hand gestures now. I can barely see you except for your face. Even if you're videoing alone, such as what I am doing right now, you can set your camera up to be successful and to get a little bit of your body included. So when you're speaking, make sure you're going to present, and I at least see some body movement. Here, I'm restricted, but that's okay. At least I can still use gesturing to enhance my speech. Next, dress like you actually want to be presenting. I love my Game of Thrones t-shirt, and I love my dog. Both of those, though, did not work well for my informative section of the speech. Instead, the dog was ready to escape because he didn't know what the heck was going on. And then I was dressed completely as if I did not want to be presenting today. So take a few moments before you present to get dressed correctly. So when you come up here, you're ready to present. Again, stay focused on the fact that you are presenting a speech and not doing something else. Get your room so it's quiet so there's not a distraction. There'll be some pointers coming up in the near future, actually in this PowerPoint, that will help you with how to look your best online. So let's go out there, let's do these informative speeches, let's get them turned in, and let's be experienced not only in presenting in person, but also presenting online, which will be a very useful tool for you going forward. Well, we started out with the wrong way to do things. Then I try to bring it back and show you how I actually want to see your informative speech performed. Now that you have those, our next item that we always cover in our formatted way of addressing speeches is we want to do our preview. I want to tell you what I'm going to tell you in this PowerPoint. The first thing I really want to start looking at is how we use PowerPoints. And with PowerPoint, I want to show you that it's a free app that you can utilize being a student. Next, let's take a look at that rubric. The rubric is going to be how you are graded, and I still need to see those other sections on the back side of the rubric that talk about body language, voice inflection, and how you're speaking to your audience. So we'll go over that. And then finally, what we want to do is sum everything up for you. Bring it to a closing where you're ready for your presentation online. And by then, I hope to have answered all your questions. Going back once again, Microsoft for Students is free. All you have to do is go to the web page, which you now see in front of you, and you can download a copy of 365, which also includes Microsoft Suites. It includes Microsoft Word. It includes also the online tools that you may be utilizing. All those are very good for you to be utilizing for online presentations. Now, if you want, I will accept you being in this little box in the corner, such as what I am right now. That is fine, but I do want to see more than just your head. So in that case, I'll need you to rearrange the camera a little bit, step back, and present in that format towards the camera and online. In that case, Some things to watch for that I've noticed on my own videos is whenever you check your notes, your eyes automatically go back down, and they can tell you that you're reading your speech rather than actually talking to them. So I'm okay if you glance down to catch where you are every now and then, but what I don't want is you reading from the actual PowerPoint the entire time. Once again, that will restrict your body movement and it will keep you from giving your best presentation. Work with the tools a little bit and you'll get more comfortable, and let me know if you have trouble. There's another way that you can also save. If you cannot upload it to Connect, we will talk about the possibility of saving it as a PowerPoint, putting it in the cloud, and sharing it with me through Google Documents would be another approach for it. Last week, we did speak about uploading your video through Connect. That would be my preferred method just because it saves it there and it'll be there for a while. Meanwhile, if you share it through something such as Google Documents, which you see in front of you now, that works as well. But it's not going to maintain it for a very long period of time because you're most likely to go in there and erase it right away. And we don't want it erased until after I get the chance to grade it. So if you do save it here, you will share it with that email address that you see it right in front up top there. And by sharing it with me, I'll be able to go in, review it, grade it, and get you your grade entered into the grade book. But don't erase it until after I've had a chance to grade it. Additionally, some other things I want you to think about is you can, like I mentioned, record directly to PowerPoint like I'm doing currently, which will save it as a PowerPoint, and you can share that file, or you can actually save it as a video, as an MP4. Please don't go to an Apple format because I do not have access to that. So let's keep it simple for me. As I say, resistance is futile, and the rubric is upon us. So when you're crafting your speech, make sure that you're following the rubric so that way you get the most points possible. The first thing we always want is our attention-getting device. In this case, my attention-getting device was me completely unprepared to give the speech. After that, what we need to do is create a central reason why you're sharing this information. This is kind of your thesis statement. It's short, it's 1 or 2 sentences, and what you're looking to do is explain to the audience what your goal is in the speech. Such as if you wanted to teach us how to bake a cake, right there's your central idea. I want to teach you how to bake a cake. And why is it important? That's your next one. That's your justification. It's important because we all like cake. So there you have your first 2. Next, your credibility. Now, your credibility can be a lot of information. Like if I was to do a credibility on this speech, for instance, I would have gone with, I've studied public speaking, I've taught public speaking, I have my master's degree in communication. Thus, I've established, hey, I'm pretty credible on what I'm talking about. In this case, if you're talking about baking a cake, it could be, I grew up baking cakes with my grandmother, or my mother, or my father, and it was a bonding moment, and I became really good at it, and now to show I care, I bake people cakes and I take it to them. Something of that variety creates credibility, and you can also start to weave in a little bit of a story into that to help draw your audience into your speech. From there, we want a preview. You might talk about, first thing I want to talk about is our ingredients. After ingredients, I want to talk about mixing. After talking about mixing those ingredients, hey, let's talk about having the oven at the right temperature and how long we're going to bake it for. And then you're going to bring it to a conclusion. So you'll have your preview there, and after you got your preview down, you're going to be moving on, and in your next section, you're going to be talking about the body of your speech. Now that you have that original attention-getting device, and you moved us into the preview. And now that you've moved out of that preview and you're transitioning into the body of the speech, the next thing we want to do is really get that speech organized. Now, it all depends on what you're presenting on. Now, we talked about this earlier in the semester. If we want to have something chronologically done, if you want to do it by spatial order or topical order. In the cake situation, you're probably going to want to go chronologically. You're going to want to have, first we do this, then we do this, and then we do this. Unless you want to talk about the history of a cake, in which case you could go topical. Let's talk about spicy cakes. Let's talk about cakes from Germany, cakes from wherever, California. You know, you can then set it up by different types of cakes, etc. But remember to keep your organization throughout your speech so that way your audience is able to follow along. After you move from there, what type of supporting material are you using? Pictures are always great. In one of these next two speeches, you're going to have a PowerPoint. So at some point, you're probably going to be the little square in the box like I am right now. You know, hang in there. It's okay. You don't feel that trapped. But when you're there, that will be your actual supporting material. You also want to have transitions. Remember how we talked about the signpost earlier? First we do this, second we do this, third we do this. We start going down the road, we're going to take a right, then we're going to take a left, then we're going to go straight ahead. Where you're kind of directing as you're moving along. So that way your audience understands the format of your speech. You also will be using a million rhetorical devices. The rhetorical device will be like the wind beneath your wings. Those are the little phrases that we utilize in speech that helps our audience relate to it, visualize. As we talked about, some of us are very visual, so you want to use a visual rhetorical device, you know, or if a person is a type of listener, you want to use a listening one where, all right, hear the sound of the speech as it's going to your audience, and they are feeling it on them. Things of that variety. Rhetorical devices, go back, review the PowerPoint if you need to, find one, utilize it. Citing your sources. Now you might be like, oh, how am I going to cite a source? I'm baking a cake. Where will I get the source from? 2 sources. Well, perhaps if you're talking about your favorite type of cake, such as what is in front of you, a chocolate cake, you could talk about, according to the American Health Association, in-text citation, chocolate helps reduce anxiety and stress. Boom, you have one citation done. Need a second citation? What about, well, according to my mother, this cake recipe was passed down to us from my grandmother and her mother before her, etc. And in this way, you are actually using an interview type of style as your credible source, but you can cite someone of that variety if you're doing something like a cake. Now, if you're doing something very scientific and you're talking about hurricanes, for instance, you want to say, well, my pappy said. That wouldn't be a credible resource because I don't know your pappy. On the other hand, if you're to say, the National Weather Institute says, boom, you got your credible resource. So remember, your body is going to be a majority of your speech. It's going to be an important part of your speech. And it's going to be where your audience really fills up their stomach. I'm getting hungry looking at this chocolate cake. Following the rubric, we have started off, we've talked about our introduction and the elements therein. And then we've moved forward and we've talked about the body of our speech. And now let's talk about the conclusion. With the conclusion, you're going to have a special type of transition. This transition is called signaling your ending. And what you'll do is at the end, you'll be saying, to sum up. And now that we've discussed, to bring us to a close, our final words are, and all these will signal your conclusions. Remember, you only want to signal once. You don't want to torture your audience and say, Now that we're coming to an end, and then talk for another 20 minutes. Actually, realize you are coming to the end, and only about 10% of your speech will be the conclusion. That body and that introduction is eating up all the rest. Now that we've gotten to conclusion, we've signaled it, let's review what we talked about. In all of our speeches, we always start with telling them what we're going to tell them. We tell them what we told them, and then we tell them what we just said. So that way, in all 3 times, they get exactly what your speech was about. From there, we want to re-justify our purpose. Now that you know how to make the best chocolate cake, you can share with your family and loved ones a form of love that's edible like cake. And that brings it down there for them. And then your clincher. Your clincher online will not be different than your clincher when you're doing your other speeches. Please don't have your clincher be, thank you, I'm done. Click. No. Have that clincher be impactful, have it strike your audience, and have it be that mic drop that we've always looked for. Speaking of bringing it to an end, we are coming to the end. There, I just signaled my ending. Now that I've done that, let's review what we talked about. I showed you the wrong way to do an online speech. I've given you an idea of the right way to do an online speech. Then we spoke about the rubric, all the portions of it, from the introduction to the body to the conclusion. And that brings us to our conclusion. And our conclusion is a quote. A quote from Mark Twain. This is how we always feel going into speeches. It usually takes me more than 3 weeks to prepare a good impromptu speech. And your speech may take you a little bit longer than you planned on it. You might record it more than once, but in the end, it will reflect your best effort.